Thank you all. Mark and Jamie, thank you for the invite. We're thrilled to be here at Spotify. We always admire the work that you guys do, and it's my first trip to Hyvio, and I've been wanting to come for quite a while. But I have two of my colleagues with me in the back there. Michael, Andy, raise your hands. They run the West region here at Spotify, so all questions, maybe ask them. But really important folks here out of our LA office and lead our growing team. Inspiring sessions this morning from everybody. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I spent many years in the radio business along the way. I think the best quote of the morning was Mike Agavino calling Bob McCurdy crazy. I can tell you, because I worked for both of them, they were both my boss, that Agavino's crazy too. So let's set the record straight, Mike. But and the funny thing is, I saw McCurdy tweeting, so he's actually watching the stream, seeing Agavino call him nuts. But you can't make it up. Anyway, Mark had asked me to share some insights on Spotify's data, how we're using the data, and what I did is I put together some slides here just to kind of show you from a first party, third party, and then music intelligence standpoint, what we're doing to inform our product and also what we're doing to inform our monetization business. So we'll do that for 25 minutes or so. But as I was putting some things together, I said, I could throw up the Luma slide and maybe some eMarketer and, of course, the obligatory Business Insider stuff and maybe show you Game of Thrones with how everybody connects there. And Troy Tulowitzki, ESPN Sports Science, and I figured there's a big correlation with your boredom and my charts. So I said, let's try to minimize as best we can the number of charts here. What I figured I would start with, right, Spotify in some ways gets accused of being this kind of machine-based, algorithm-driven company, and we do quite a bit of that, but we also have quite a bit of human curation. At the end of the day, what we're doing is connecting music fans to artists, right? And we just came off an incredible week a couple of months ago at South by Southwest in Austin, where we do this huge activation. We have 30,000 people coming through this Spotify house. I just wanted to show you a quick 2-minute video of who are these users and why are they so passionate about Spotify and sort of what do we do to tie them together with our brand and our artists. So hopefully this will.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
I've dreamt about coming here. To be here is pretty special.
There's show everywhere. You are running everywhere. It's fun.
I just like to see young artists get their shot here. So even though there's a lot of major money here in branding, this really still is very much a young artist festival and game.
It's my favorite week of the year. It's exhausting. We have a lot of partners that are down there, and it's 24/7 for about 6 straight days. But you really get to see Spotify fans. You get to see our users in action. I love talking to them. I like asking them what they love about the service. And again, that was a short 2 months ago, and I figured why not give you a taste of what we're doing down there. But it's been a busy year for Spotify since we turned the corner into 2015. I think there's probably at least an article a day in one of the major consumer press around what we're doing. And I'll walk you through some of that as I'm hopefully putting a story together about data, but we've made a few bets. Some of these bets started 6, 7 years ago when Daniel Ek started this journey in a garage in Stockholm, Sweden. But those bets continue today, and it's really led us to, and this is pretty interesting because this has changed. Spotify being the fastest growing streaming content service in the world. Right, we're in 58 countries. We have really put our investors' money in spreading Spotify to the world. We also are not just a music service anymore. As you might have seen our press conference from a couple of weeks ago, we've diversified content now into video, into podcasts. So it's going to be certainly music-led, but what our fans and users are telling us is we want more. Okay, when we listen to Spotify, we love it. We don't want to go into all these other apps to find content. So this is pretty new to us, but we are looking at a world, again, that's continuing. We like to think we started some of this where ownership has now turned into access. Do we really need to own music anymore, right? Do we really need to own video anymore? If you can grab it from the cloud on any particular device and you can follow that user across those devices, why is ownership important? And I think some of the moves Apple's about to make speaks to this. This connected world is something that we've placed quite a few bets on, both connecting people, but also connecting devices, right? Spotify is a very social, shareable service. The content is easy to share with friends by design, but if you think about what's happening now and into the future, the idea of connected devices, how my mobile phone connects to my car dashboard, how my mobile phone now connects to speakers in my home. Spotify has placed quite a few bets in this area, and the stat below always blows my mind that by 7 years from now we might have 500 connected devices in our home. Pretty scary stuff. It's probably like all predictions, it's probably overshooting the runway just a little bit, but I think you get the picture. As Duncan said from Slacker, they believe in partnerships. So do we. We're not doing this alone. We need some strategic partners to distribute Spotify content in many different ways, and a lot of this has come this year. Earlier this year, we announced a partnership with Uber where you can listen to your favorite playlists and your favorite artists in an Uber car. So try that if you haven't. The drivers are getting a lot more educated. It's a very simple, seamless way to listen to your Spotify playlist. So try that out when you get a second. But that's an exciting one that started in the US that's now spreading globally. The PlayStation partnership is something relatively new. We announced that, or I should say launched that on April 1st. Sony had their own proprietary music service that they came to us and said, we would like Spotify to replace that. So the opportunity for us to have music played to their 64 million worldwide network of gamers is pretty interesting, right? That 1834 millennial is something that we're maniacal about, so that was a no-brainer for us. So we're now powering that whole PlayStation music experience, and that's just getting started. In car, we were a little bit later than a couple of other online music services to get into Dash, but this is quickly moving. So we've announced partnerships with Ford, with Mini, with BMW. You'll see a lot more coming. So building for each of these proprietary OSs is not easy, but it's obviously important. That in-car use case to Spotify is critical. So you will see a lot more work there. Spotify Connect is one of the more interesting things to me. I don't know how many of you have tried this, but we have a Spotify chip embedded in 60 speaker manufacturers globally. So what used to be this massive stereo that you had to have in your house with the big console and all the big speakers has really turned into a mobile phone and a few small speakers throughout your home. You're just kind of pointing and clicking music as you're going. Very similar to the Sonos experience, but we have our own technology called Spotify Connect. Last but not least, last week we announced the Starbucks partnership, so we will now be powering the in-store music experience for Starbucks in their 7,000 US locations, so that'll be really a fall launch, so they will be an interesting experience there, I think, for all of you that are Starbucks fans. We will also be tied into their loyalty program, so you will be able to earn, I think it's Starbucks points. I'm more of a Dunkin' guy, but you'll be able to earn Starbucks points in order to get Spotify Premium. So this is something we're super, super excited about, and something that moving forward you'll see a lot here in the fall. So distribution is a huge part of what we're doing. We're also paying close attention to how music tastes are shifting, right? In the old days, this guy being an oldies or classic rock station, or this woman being on a pop station, or this guy being on a hip hop station was very linear and very clear. It's frankly very easy. But what happens when these three get together and they create a song. Where does it play? Does it play on oldie stations, right? Guys my age and older, can't stand the guy on the right. A lot of millennials don't even know the name of the guy on the left. So where do you put it? And obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration, but music services that have an intelligence engine, that have data that can power certain experiences to surface this content correctly is a big bet that Spotify's making. So first and foremost, the power of first-party data. Everyone that comes to Spotify, right, is fully authenticated. So you either have to give us your name, your location, and your age, or you can sign in through Facebook. So either way, we have data on you that allows us to do a number of things. Very simply allows us to sort of follow you as to how you're using Spotify. So if you fire up your mobile device in the morning, if you get to your office and listen to Spotify on your desktop or your laptop, and perhaps you're taking a run after work, we're following all that experience, all those playlists through the first-party data. So something that is really critical to what we do, and I'll walk you through some of the data that it gives us. On a very fundamental form, it gives us genuine age data. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody, but our sweet spot is 65% of our audience is adults 18-34. We're growing on the 17 and under, but it allows us to have true age data for us to really start working with and programming against. Our friends at Triton, we jumped into their national ranker about 10 months ago. We've seen some very strong growth from the national, again, just US only, from this domestic ranker, 63% growth since last July, something that we're very proud of, something that we talk to partners and brands about all the time. Frankly, keeping up with this growth is exhausting, but I'm not complaining, and certainly from the person that's responsible for monetizing the free tier, something that our sales team loves, but we have to make sure we're keeping pace with the user growth. What I like talking about more, and I think what we're proud of most at Spotify, is the engagement. We've got so many registered users, we don't know what to do with them. We don't really talk about our registered users because they frankly don't mean all that much. What means a lot is the active users on Spotify. What's the engagement of those users? And we have them for 2.5 hours a day. So we like to talk about comparing that to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to Facebook. Just think about if you're a partner or a brand and you have access to Spotify audience for 2.5 hours a day, the real question is, what do you want to do with them? Do you want to just hit them with media? That's fine. Do you want to do something interesting with branded content that you might have? Do you want to access the open API? A lot of things that are interesting here, all powered by that first-party data story. We talked about demos. We talked a little bit about time spent. The gender split is roughly even. What we have seen a massive shift is on the mobile side. Spotify didn't have a mobile-free tier until December of 2013. So in a short, 16, 17 months, we've seen us go from a 90% desktop platform to 65% mobile. And this thing is moving even more quickly on the mobile side. So it's changed everything we do from a product perspective, monetization perspective. I like to think in a good way. Some of the comments that were made this morning about mobile, though, are important. You got to be ready. This is an important pivot in the company. We talked a little bit about engagement. I'll mention brand advocacy a little bit later in the presentation. The first-party data, though, allows us to do some special things with respect to genres. I am not proposing genres are dead. But as I will show you in a moment, people are shifting a bit the way they listen to music. But we can see, for example, with pop, we've got a little bit more female than male, very intuitive. We've got 62% of that audience that are 18 to 24, fairly intuitive. We have 55 million on average streams per day, and we know on Fridays is the peak that the pop music tends to fire on Spotify. We would have absolutely no way of knowing this unless we had the first-party reg data. That's why it's critical, and you can see some of the similar areas with both rock and with country. We made a pretty strategic acquisition about a year ago with a company called the Echo Nest, which I think a lot of this room probably knows. The Echo Nest was founded about a decade ago by two PhDs out of the MIT Media Lab in Boston, and we frankly tried to out-Echo Nest the Echo Nest, and we couldn't do it. So after a period of time, we said, we just got to buy these guys. We got to bring them in-house, and that needs to power everything we do with playlists, music discovery, music intelligence. It's a fascinating company. I can frankly spend an hour on them alone, but I'll give you a quick overview. If you sort of take the first-party reg data as kind of the foundational piece that informs our product and monetization strategy, this really informs what people are listening to, how we surface the proper content, and does a much deeper dive. So they really cover two areas. One is music content, and the other is music cultural understanding. So on the content side, we're adding 50,000 new songs a week globally at Spotify. Think about that. How they're tagged, what genre they're in. What's interesting about the Echo Nest, we could probably name 20 genres off the top of our head. The Echo Nest has about 1,500 genres that they are bucketing, songs on the service. So it's a pretty interesting. And they're doing a lot of analysis, both machine-based analysis with algorithms and also human curation. So we kind of attack this from both sides. On the right is more cultural understanding. So we're crawling the web daily with 10 million posts about music and finding out what are people saying about music, what are people saying about artists. All this funnels into the Echo Nest Open API, which as a developer you have access to. So we have a huge 30,000 developer community, a partner management team that holds the hands of these developers on how to use it. But this is some special sauce at Spotify that still is a year old. I think we're still scratching the surface with respect to how it's going to help our business. So I talked a little bit about this, but they really go deep on both the content understanding side with tempo, key, energy, danceability of songs, and then on the right with cultural understanding, social posts and playlisting. So again, it's a huge intelligence engine for us and something that is relatively new. They're also forming what's called taste profiles. So each Spotify user has a taste profile, and there's a few inputs on that. One is on the top, sort of the music data. What are you listening to? What artist, what songs, what playlists are you firing? How many skips, how many ratings? Somewhat similar to the Music Genome Project of that other company in the space. We can process, though, this quite a bit faster, mainly because of our algorithms and our machine-based learning. On the context side, what device are you listening to? What time of day? What time of week? Right? So all this are inputs for the taste profiles. And again, I could spend so much time on this. I'm just looking at the clock. I have to be careful. But what it's doing is it's informing a different strategy for us. What used to be kind of a search and play Spotify use case has turned now into listening to music around moods, moments, and activities. So we're finding that people like listening to music around certain moments of their day. Working out, studying, at work, partying with friends, right? So there's certain cases where Spotify users like to listen to music, and it's up to us to program that for their day. What's really interesting, if you look at some data from last year, we saw, the use case moments here really pop on Spotify versus the genre moments. So what used to be hip hop and R&B and genre-based stuff, now those playlists around workout, party, and mood, those are now coming to the surface around the most streamed playlists on Spotify. So really interesting, something that's, again, informing our strategy. A lot of what you've read in the trades is due to a lot of this. And due to the Echo Nest data, we're able to really understand how people listen to music at different times of the week, right? So for example, the workout playlists, there's 25% more streams on weekdays of workout playlists, right? On the top right, the Girls Night Out playlist is there's 100% increase in those streams from Saturday versus Friday. It's interesting. I guess there's more girls going out on Saturday versus Friday. The Getting Ready playlist, right, pops on Thursdays for whatever reason. So we're learning a lot. This is a fairly new strategy for us and something, again, we could not do without the Echo Nest data. Something Echo Nest is doing too is there's an insights blog that you can follow. Just Google it. It's Echo Nest Insights on Spotify, so something that you can subscribe to and follow, and they post every couple of days. You'll get a new post with a new music insight that I think is interesting. So on the left, what they found, and this is, again, somewhat intuitive, that music taste evolves until age 25, and then once you kind of hit 25 into 35, your popularity of music, right, tends to go to the side. Somewhat intuitive. On the right there, if we throw parents into that mix, right, parents are listening to less current popular music than the average listener does. So for those of you that have kids that do not think your music is cool, but they're probably right. The Echo Nest is telling you something about that. The new Spotify, so this is again, something very new to us. So we diversified into video and podcast content recently. our users have told us that they just want more out of the service than just music. So something that's, again, interesting to us, brand new. We've got 20 launch partners on the video side that are helping us here, from Viacom to ESPN to the BBC to Vice News and more. Don't have much to share on this since we literally launched it 2 weeks ago. It's rolling out to about 2% of users every day. So if you're a Spotifyer and you haven't gotten this yet, stay tuned. I promise you will. We're also doing some work around sort of third-party data. So we did a study with ComScore that really tried to figure out how do streamers feel about brands versus non-streamers? And it sort of never was done before. It was a 4,000-person study that was delivered to us at the beginning of the year. One thing we realized is streamers are delivering a more engaged audience, which of course is interesting to us. But if you really break it down, streamers are just more valuable for brands, right, bottom line. So they tend to have 2 times more brand advocacy than non-streamers, emotional connectivity 2 times more than non-streamers, and then they're 1.5 as likely to make a positive, rational association about your brand. So we're using third-party data in a pretty interesting and strategic way as well. I want to make up some time here, so I'm going to blast through some of this. We've did some studies with specific brands, in this case, Volkswagen, where we were able to show them through the third-party study, by Spotify users specifically, how likely are they to own or lease your car? How likely are they to recommend Volkswagen to a friend? How likely are they to pay more for a Volkswagen? So some interesting things that brands want to see. So if content models have changed, the question is, how's that affecting media strategies, right? So agencies, and we're going to hear Kirsten in a few minutes, which I'm interested in, how is the media strategy changing around different content uses, different ways of surfacing content, having streamers now as a category? So at Spotify, we've built our ads business around a few interesting things. So 100% viewability on video ads, something, again, but video should be viewable, but most, I think 50% of all video ads online are not viewable. So we're delivering the audio ads to completion, which it should be intuitive. Unfortunately, it's not, and then fully viewable display impressions. We've released a whole new targeting suite at Spotify, which don't have a ton of time to go through this, but we can target by all the first-party data on the left that I showcased before. We now can target by playlists. So if a brand, let's say Nike, wants to target a running playlist, we can now do that. If Coca-Cola wants to target a happiness playlist on Spotify, we can now do it. If Victoria's Secrets wants to own sexy on Spotify, believe it or not, we have many sexy songs and many sexy playlists, we can now do it. So these are new ways. This is sort of, from our perspective, it's the new way to behaviorally target, right? Why do I want to get that runner that was on a runner site after he or she did his run? Why don't I get him while he's running, right? It's somewhat simple to, sort of to understand from the brand side, but tough to do unless you have a lot of music intelligence. This is our new video suite. So this is on mobile. It's called Sponsored Sessions, something we thought quite a bit about. We didn't want to just introduce pre-roll ads. We wanted to introduce an experience for users that had a value proposition. And essentially, when you start your Spotify session on mobile, on the free tier, you get an offer. Do you want 30 minutes of ad-free listening in return to watch this video ad? So there is a value exchange there. There's an opt-out. You don't have to watch the video. We're finding that 85% of our users are watching the video, and I'll show you how it works. This is actually a McDonald's example.
Enjoy the next 30 minutes ads-free after this brief message from our sponsor.
Yep, I love my sleep, but I need my morning run. I find my shoes and go wake Pete. Yeah, my lab likes to sleep in. Once I find my keys, we're out the door. And even when it's crowded, that run is worth it, because on the way home, there's a coffee with my name on it. Then I really wake up.
Thanks for watching. Click the screen for more info. Now, enjoy the next 30 minutes ads-free, thanks to our sponsor.
Something a little bit different than what you're used to seeing in straight pre-roll video, and now back to content, right? So the value proposition has worked fairly well so far. We'll see if that continues. We have a lot of brands using the open API. So this is an example of what's called a road trip mixtape. So an auto brand can sponsor this. All you have to do, again, this is the EchoNest data. If you're making a trip from Boston to New York and you want to time that trip, so let's say it's a 4-hour trip, Mashing up kind of the open Google Maps API and the Econest API, you can get a playlist that every town along the way, it gives you an artist from that town, right? So some pretty cool stuff that, now brands can run media, don't get me wrong, but this is the type of stuff that they're interested in with open API and, again, branded content work. Adidas is a big global advertiser for us. We have our friends from Germany here, a German brand. Adidas is running a lot of media on Spotify. The easy stuff, right? Activating our 60 million active users around the globe. What we like doing is some more custom work. So what Adidas did is said, how do we add more value to a run on Spotify? So how about Adidas brings this boost your run concept. So you type in how long your run is, what type of intensity that run is, and it will feed you back a Spotify playlist that it goes right along with the timing of that run. So this is all brought to you by Adidas, something, again, we find pretty interesting. So a lot of things we're doing around first-party data, music intelligence, and third-party data, both for partners and for brands, and most importantly, our product, for our users. I hope that gives you in a sort of a short 25 minutes a little idea of what we're doing. So thank you.